Okay, so in the previous video we were looking through the Power BI application and looking through the number of reports based on the worldometers and hum data data. Now we're saying, okay, if we've got exhausted that and we'd like to take some of the information down from the web and play around with that in a local spreadsheet model, then we can do that by downloading the companion EIB COVID-19 Excel model here. Now I'm not going to take you through the entire download process, it would just take too long, but when you click on that, that will actually go then to another web page that'll invite you to download the file here. When you hit on download here, it'll give you the usual prompt of, do you want to open up the file? You either save it, probably best to save it to your local desktop and then open it, or you can just open it, and then that will then crank up the Excel application. When it cranks up the Excel application, it's slightly different to the way Power BI works. Power BI, we refresh the model 4 times a day. In Excel, it's whenever you open the model, it will automatically go back to the worldometers and hum data sources and refresh there and then. And it takes probably about 3 minutes when you first refresh. And the reason why it takes that time is we're actually, even in May here, we are actually loading in now over 100,000 rows of data into this Excel model. And the scalability we get for that, rather than using normal Excel, happens through this thing called Power Query that is a fairly new Microsoft development, but it's absolutely fantastic at storing large volumes of data within an Excel workbook, which is what we want to do here, because we want to explore it over time. We want to explore it by continent, we want to explore it by country, by sub-region, and so forth. So similar to the Power BI, I've got a number of menu options here. I click on the summary. Guess the difference between Excel and Power BI. Excel is much better at doing sort of report-centric work, and Power BI is much better at doing the sort of really highly interactive dashboards. So they complement each other really nicely here. So I'm looking at the worldometers data. It's as of today, 23rd of May in this example. I can home in on a particular continent by clicking here, and you can see there's little plus signs. So if I want to drill into any one of these continents, all I have to do is go to that continent, click on the plus sign, and it will then drill me down accordingly. Now obviously size of the bar here in relative to the overall position in the country will obviously give me then the magnitude of the data within the thing we're looking at, within the item we're looking at. So we're looking at today. We're looking at worldwide. We've drilled down into North America, we've drilled down into Africa. I can flip that to yesterday any point I want by just clicking on the data there, changing today to yesterday, clicking on OK, and you'll see the information instantaneously refresh. Now I can obviously then drill back up these hierarchies by again reselecting the plus minus icon there, and I can home in on individual continents if I wish. So if I wanted to just look at Europe, I could. If I wanted to compare Europe with South America, control click on the two, I've now got both there. Now the weird continent you might see on the left hand side is, what the hell is a continent called vessel? If you remember in the very early days of COVID, there were a couple of cruise liner ships that were actually outside anyone's particular waters and had people on there who unfortunately developed the coronavirus and in some cases died. So they are treated by worldometers as a separate, if you like, pseudo-continents where you can see actually what happened to those individual vessels. But I'm not going to really touch on that today. If you want to go back in a similar way to Power BI, you want to reset all this, you just click on this reset filter there and it'll then take you back, and you've then got all the continents here, as you can see. So similar to Power BI as well, I can either page my way through these Excel sheets, or at any time I can go back to the main menu and pick on the next one. So whereas before we were looking at different metrics across continents, here we're doing the same thing. But we're homing in on one in particular. So we're looking at total cases in this example, and we're looking at total cases as of today and as of yesterday, cumulative position, what the movement was. And then we're taking the movement values here and saying overall within the context, so in the context here is worldwide because we haven't selected any continent, here are the 10 fastest movers today, or the 10 that have increased the most in terms of cases in this example, but we do the same in deaths, and a more pleasant side, we actually do it in recoveries as well. So worldwide, you can see at a glance here, USA and Brazil had the highest number of new cases here, and the UK down in 6th or 7th. Now, if you want to say, well, okay, but what about if I just looked at one continent or a couple of continents? I could actually go and select Europe here, and then it will home in and now do a top 10 just based on what I've got selected. So in this case, just based on Europe. So here you can see Russia, highest number of new cases, UK, second highest number of new cases. And I can combine continents together. If I wanted to look at, say, the UK and Asia or Oceania in Australia and New Zealand, then clicking on that will obviously then add those to the mix. They obviously weren't high enough to even feature in the top 10. Let's add North America in there, and you can see then the USA, Russia coming in there from the highest in Europe, Mexico also coming in there. You get the idea. So you can either look at this on a worldwide basis if I reset the filter, or again look at the individual continents, and again look at the individual countries. You can drill down here. And in this case now we are sorting on highest cases first. So you can see here as I drill, you can see the different countries going from highest level to lowest. Now we repeat that unfortunately here for deaths. So you can see here the deaths, and also we then do it on a more pleasant side on the recoveries there. So those three reports all behave exactly the same way. And then we kind of move off of worldometers and look on to the longer trend. And this is where I think bringing the data down, for someone who wants to play around with the data, really quite exciting here, because Excel can handle this really, really nicely, I think. So you're now looking at the individual continents, and you're looking at a breakdown of the continents here by the cases, deaths, and recovered. But now you're looking at it on an entire daily basis, in this case from the 1st of March right the way down to the latest date, which should be here the 22nd, I guess, of May. You can see 21st, and then the most recent date is the one we give to today, so that will be the 22nd of May. And again, you can be selective. You could say, well, that's a little bit too much for me to take in. Maybe I only want to look at deaths. So by clicking on deaths now, you'll filter out the other two and show those for the different continents. And of course you could actually home in on just one continent here, or a couple of continents, by doing control click and then pick the countries within it. So really nice and flexible there. Again, clicking on the reset filter brings everything back. Clicking on the reset filter there brings all my measures back. Now of course, as you saw in Power BI, maybe you don't want all the dates from the 1st of March onwards, so you can slide this bar up here to say April, or wherever you want to do, up to May, and it will just give you the last end day. So you can be very granular. You can say exactly when you want the data from. Really quite flexible there. And then what we do is we link to this table, we link the next sheet, which is a dashboard of those days. So again, because I've now restricted it down to May, you can see I'm only plotting those dates accordingly. But of course, if I drag that back here as well, it will re-plot the information now for as many days as I actually give it. And again, I could be selective here. I could just want to say I want to compare the cases, and I only want to compare North America to Europe, for example. So control click on there, and I'm now overlaying North America and Europe. So at this level, we're pretty much doing it at the continent. You can pick an individual country within there, but by and large here, you're comparing continents. And remember to hit the resets to bring all the data back in. But then what we do is we say, well, how do we get down into more level of detail in Excel? So now I'm looking worldwide, but I'm looking at every country worldwide now, their position for deaths, in this example, and because there's obviously so many countries, I'm not doing the deaths, cases and recoveries here, but I can change it at any point in time. I can actually go back here and say, well, let's have a look at the same information by cases, let's look at the same information by recoveries. So you can see really, really fast, flexible access to the information. And again, I can restrict this. If I move this back up to say May, then obviously I can move that up there and it will change the data. And I might want to just pick Europe, so it'll only give me the countries in Europe. And now here, this is where I might say, well, maybe I only want the UK, and I want to contrast the UK with Spain, and I want to contrast it with Russia and Portugal. And you can see I can pick out the countries really, really easily and see how they compare with each other. Now, just like with the continent data, we're doing the same thing here in terms of we're taking the tabular data here and then linking it to the final dashboard. So now I'm actually plotting the individual countries now, and you can see as I hover over any one of these bars, it'll tell me what that country is. So that's the UK position, and that is the Spanish position, and so forth. So a big spike in deaths in Spain today. So, really nice and easy to use. Again, like in the Power BI app, there is a separate tab, happens to be the same as the Power BI thing here, that just explains what the data sets are based on, and also talks about the validity of the data and things you need to consider when you're looking at the information. So I hope if you've looked at this, you're going to download the app. Remember to keep going back and get the latest version of it, because we will be changing this all the time. If you like what you see, then please either contact us by email or register your interest by clicking on this link here, which will take you to a certain part of our website where you can register your interest and hopefully your details. Thank you.